Hello, everybody. We're here today with Kate Hockaday, who's got some questions for Antemedi. So we'll see where this takes us and what transpires.
Yes, thank you. This is very exciting for me, and I appreciate both of you doing this with me today. So the type of communication you have with Robert seems very rare to me. Why is this?
It's not unusual, and it is possible for everybody. What is particular about this is the clearance of the subconscious, so that the voice I have and the interface that I have with Robert is clearer. In this way, who I am comes through without interference or any blocks in the way. That said, because Robert is an extension of me, I am him and vice versa. So that in a way makes it easier. But we have an interface that has been upgraded over the years. In part, this is because his idea of self, or that particular body's idea of self, has been dissipated. So the sense of self being removed or shoved to one side, as it were, allows an interface where the exchange is as if it is his own voice, and it makes no difference.
Okay, so you worked together.
Yes, we did. I would say for 20 years before, it's been 30 years now since his wake up. But for the initial 20, he had spiritual guides. He had no awareness of the alien element. And we spent, with others who came in, many hours questioning him. In fact, quite often he would question us about a particular item, and we would reflect that back and say, now, why have you asked that question? What is the sponsoring thought behind that? So all of the time we were releasing his hold on duality and changing the subconscious. Nowadays, you would know this as transmuting energy. At that particular time, it was just enlightenment. To the point that one day I said to him, do you not find my name unusual? And we explored that. And I gradually introduced the fact that I am Andromedan. In fact, he was outside at the time, and we had another friend. We had an interloper, and I was aware of it. A tourist on a biosphere, a female lady, was just exploring, and we have equipment and devices where we can pinpoint individuals. And so with our permissions and thoughts, these give off not so much a signal, but there's an awareness of who is able and willing to contact or communicate. So we had a two-way conversation with this lady who talked about different things, one of which Robert found quite funny, which was music. The fact that much of your music is about suffering and angst, love lost, and sorrow, to the point that there was a bluesy song which would have been about a man who perhaps lost his dog, his wife left him, he became a drunk, and one of these kind of things where the joke was made that perhaps we would put that in reverse and there would be some fun at the end of it. But she made a very valuable point, which was, we seek joy. And one of the ways in which we seek joy is we seek to move away from suffering. And again, that's part of duality. So we have to maintain the suffering in order to move away from it. Yeah, otherwise, what is joy? So our joy is based in something different. It's based not in moving from one state to another, but choosing the state that we wish to be in. So we have stimuli that comes to us in our senses in similar ways to yourselves, but our subconscious programs have been changed. We have been through them so that our way of interpreting them is different. We don't allow them to become our state of being. So yes, perhaps we've gone off on a tangent, but your original question was, how does one communicate? So that was part of the story of allowing Robert to see that not only was he multidimensional, but he was alien also, or a projection of me.
That was a good tangent. Thank you.
Whilst on that, I would like to point out that other past lives that he remembers, or that energy remembers, were not projections of me, even though it's the same soul. It's only this time that I have, as an Andromedan, projected a part of my consciousness and allowed myself to go into stasis. For me, the period of time is quite short. It's only a matter of a few months. But for Robert, it is a lifetime. But the earth memories of my soul, which is his soul, the same thing, were projections from my soul, or from the soul, directly into those earth experiences. The previous ones.
Okay, I've gotten a little confused because of my understanding or lack of past lives. And it's a little hard to form the question because I know time is all one thing.
Oh, on one level, it is all one thing, and it's all contiguous and happening in the same moment. Part of my soul came to Earth many lifetimes ago, not as an extension of Antemedi, but part of my soul, which says is all our souls are massive. They are able to project themselves into many different experiences. It was on that occasion that we were experimenting with change of communities and change of energies. Here we have a oneness whereby we love one another unconditionally, and we project that love, and we live in a different state of being on Earth, and there is no separation. So we have an awareness of being one another to an extent. And this was part of an experiment on an outpost on Earth, whereby we created or allowed separation programs to come into the consciousness in order to experiment and see what was likely to happen.
Okay.
So, in other words, he was separated from the main Andromedan consciousness. He and one other. And that was so traumatic for him that he ended up taking his own life because he was so detached from love and reality. And that set in motion a karmic role for part of my soul to be reincarnated on Earth 7 times in total. But this last time, it is a projection from me as an Andromedan, part of my consciousness, into him, because it is his last time on Earth, and it is part of the plan to remove any energy my soul has on the Earth. And it was important that there was direct interface with me as an Andromedan.
Got it. Okay. And so this outpost that you talk about is or was Andromedan, or is this more of a star?
It was an Andromedan experiment on Earth.
Okay. And other stars have been having this experiment on Earth.
Yes, I don't know if they've all had the same experience of separation, but Earth in its 3D consciousness has separation programs in order to have the 3D experience. That said, Earth as such had a much greater consciousness, and the DNA was altered, as you know, and therefore the communication and the consciousness and was altered. So humanity devolved from what it was.
Right. Okay.
And this was, I suppose, at the time of the Golden Age, whereby there were lots of thoughts being projected into the collective consciousness. One of these thoughts was about God itself, albeit that we have a different view that there is no God, it's a system, and we are part of that system. About responsibility, and one of these thoughts going through the population at that time was that it would be good for others to have responsibility, so that one could absolve oneself of responsibility, because it would be nice to be saved. It would be good to be saved. And of course, you can see where that leads to. It leads to giving away all your self-rights. And that's what people are reclaiming at the moment from the negative side.
Right. Okay. But there are, this is a massive topic, so I'm trying to ask simple questions. There are Pleiadians and others, quite a few others that are working to help transmute the inner, to remove the negative forces, which from what I know is that's done. That the Seekar and others, the reptilians, are not a part of us anymore, and we're at the point where we're able to heal ourselves. And this is, I don't want to get into too deep a dive with that because I feel like it's a massive topic. But the point is that this is not just an Andromedan origination, right?
No, no, it's a multifaceted and different humanoids and species have come together to help with Earth's evolution. That said, talking about responsibility, it's about knowing what power humanity has, the power to create its own reality, not to believe the reality that's being projected to it by the media and the subconscious, all the DNA that's been programmed in the past by your forebears. Your reality can actually be changed by who you believe you are and what you believe reality should be. And one of the things that I have been encouraging is for people to disconnect from the current worldview of what's 3D and not so much ignore it, but live in a world of their own belief. Now, this might sound foolish. It might sound as though one's ignoring reality. Well, what is reality? reality is made up. Reality is whatever you believe it is. Reality is not fixed. It's flexible. Reality reflects who you are and what you think and the collective consciousness. People don't believe they have that power, or the mind or the consciousness has that power. But there are massive arcana programs and consciousness programs that keep everything in flux. And it's possible to change the world by changing what you think. And this is part of the dawn before this change comes from 3D to 5D.
Okay. Yeah, you've already touched on 2 or 3 of my questions. I understand that we are very powerful, and it all has to do with our thoughts. And we believe that we are on a linear timeline. And the collective is what? This is a worldwide belief, so that is our manifested reality. But that if you can step away from that and not believe that that's exactly the way it is, this linear timeline, that it can turn on its head. It can go from horizontal to vertical, and whatever you believe can manifest immediately. Is that right?
If there is sufficient numbers and if the energies of the universe are coinciding. So there is a merging, a coming together of part of the collective consciousness and the energies of the universe, which are themselves sentient and conscious. Coming back to the point about creating, I would say, are you not the creator?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
I mean, that's a hard thing for people to accept. But all that was possible by the original programs as they unfolded is replicated in the universe around. So it's a matter of creating your own environment and your own beliefs. Technology forms a part of it as well. Technology, Robert found surprising. He was surprised to think that technology was a part of spiritual evolution, because it's part of the universe. The universe is created. It's all part of the oneness. Can be used as you wish.
Right. Okay.
It does require a symbiosis between Earth humanity thoughts and the change in pulse energies, or the change as it comes along. I'm not saying that as man thinks differently, he's going to create a new 5th dimensional reality for everybody. There will be pockets of 5th dimensional reality. You can have your own pocket of 5th dimensional reality in and around you. But the transition from 3rd to 5th, I showed Robert it as 2 different worlds, 2 different dimensions, 2 different timelines. The 5th dimensional timeline already exists. The 5th dimensional timeline doesn't come from the 3rd dimensional one. I explained before that timelines can change. Because we're in the moment of now, whatever you do and think by transmuting energy, you change your energy, therefore you change the past and the future timelines that you have. Because all is in the now, there is no time. That said, there is a linear experience to try and make sense of things, and that's kind of what triggers into time. So in the fifth dimensional reality of Earth, some people already exist on the higher fifth dimensional reality. So where they are in their third, some of them are touching on moving away from their third dimensional reality and may focus across, but they don't necessarily remember that they are. And energy in the soul rotates. That's something that will take quite a while to explain.
Okay.
Oh, I've gone off on a tangent now. That's more to do with the Arcana program of, say, for example, Kate. Everything that you are is Kate, always has been. It's the program of Kate. But the soul energy is on a feedback loop. So the consciousness that passes through you and all your other parts of soul is constantly moving, as it were, or we could say it's all there.
Okay.
But because it's in a program of Kate, you only perceive that you are Kate, even though your soul and its energy is passing through you and all your other multidimensional selves at the same time.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So the transition as such will come in an instant. That there will be break-offs before the third dimensional reality collapses. So yeah, the third dimensional reality will collapse. Some people will move to the fifth dimensional Earth, where their consciousness, part of their consciousness already is, having a life on fifth dimensional reality. They will join that timeline, and the Earth timeline will cease to exist for the 3D Earth timeline will cease to exist for.
How it will be okay. So 3D reality and how it won't be there anymore. You're explaining 3D reality and 5D reality and what it will be like. That transition, I guess.
Just for anyone listening to the internet bomb, so we've we've come back and made a new connection. That's why we're going over what we just said.
Yes.
Yes, so 3D Earth will still exist as a program, but it won't be energized. So the format, the program is still there, but it's a non-entity because there is no energy in it. So the energies are being withdrawn from that 3D program.
Oh, interesting. So, okay. This was a really big question I had for you, and I wasn't sure if you could give a direct answer. A 3D program goes through the birth, life, death cycle. It grows and then it decays. So is that what to expect, or is it something different? And how does that work?
Yeah, there's two questions in there, or another part that I would like to answer. One is about this responsibility for what's being done to Earth. So people have to step up and start taking responsibility for the damage and energetic damage that's been done. Not all of that has to be transmuted. It's the intent to transmute and the desire to transmute. So when the uplift comes, people will be stepping away from the karmic energy as such. So one doesn't have to keep repeating something on a treadmill. If the knowledge is there, and the intent to clear it up is there. You can withdraw the energy and change the energy on a different consciousness level. So it doesn't have to be done in an earth karmic way of transmuting energy.
Okay.
But the intent to clear up the earth and put things right needs to be in place.
Got it.
Must admit, I've forgotten the other question.
No, we've kind of organically come to this point, and I think it's a good idea if I ask a question. So you.
I didn't answer your question.
You didn't.
Fully,
okay.
because I went off at a tangent.
So the Earth won't be destroyed, if I were to put it bluntly. Is that right? It'll be an energetic shift.
Yes. You were talking about birth and death cycles.
Yeah.
I would like to come back to the origins of the universe, talking about creator energy in conjunction with a moha as an origin whereby creator energy created itself. Now that might sound counterintuitive, but all possibility with all probability meant sooner or later creation was going to come about. And it was a mutation within possibility. And the energy was created by the mutation and perhaps not necessarily the thought, but the spark, which would be grow. And so creator energy began to create itself in conjunction with moha. Moha was the mind, you might call it God and the mind of God. So as different thoughts or different grows came about, different bubbles of possibilities began, they either flowed and were successful. If they didn't flow, the energy came back to creator energy, but so did any successful outcome. So all the time, creator energy was growing, and so was the consciousness. And so the two worked in tandem, side by side. Eventually, there's a lot to explain about the consciousness programs and the energies as they developed. You see, at that particular point, there was no self-awareness. Self-awareness did not exist. Benevolence did not exist. There was no benevolent God. What sort of universe would a benevolent God have made? Whereas allow all or grow, and there's no parameters, no restrictions, just choice. That is the basis of a successful universe. Allow all. So allow all gets to the point that, as I say, I am writing something with Robert at the moment which talks about this and takes it to the point where awareness grows. There's an awareness of the need to express or a desire to express and learn by expressing. So at that point, moha and creator energy dissipate. So creator energy moves through, so the feedback loop is changed. Creator energy moves through the mind, moves through all the programs of possibility that it would like to be, and source comes into creation. So then we have what you are now left with, which is source energy, which is a reflection of creator energy, which is neutral and abundant, and you have arcana systems, which are the consciousness programs of your world or of the universe.
Okay.
In my first book, I talked about pulse. I talked about the repetition, so that everything is a vibration, creating holograms. So if you can imagine a burst in every single part of the universe, there's a burst on and off, on and off. So there we have birth and death. All of this reflects the original paradox. The original paradox that something came from nothing. In order for there to be something, there has to be nothing. So these are subtle levels of, I would say, mechanics, mathematics, and understandings, and I'm trying to put them forward in a tangible way. So that's what sparked me down this route when you were talking about birth and death. In every moment, these arcana programs, consciousness, they are also extensions of you, and you have your own arcana programs. So soul source is also soul source at that point of creation. So you have soul source and your own soul arcana programs. So the universe also has source and arcana programs.
Okay.
So in your heart, you are connected to source. Okay. These are vibrational. There's different types of energies, but the ones that sustain your world are pulse energies. So as a burst of energy takes place within the consciousness programs, the bursts take place in every single point of the universe, because the consciousness programs exist in every single point of the universe. So we can see that not only is movement an illusion, because your body, the holograms, are constantly in flux and constantly being remade, reborn, death and rebirth. So that is the paradox, that you are here and you are not here. You exist and you don't exist. And of course you do, because there is a part of you that is also non-self. So of course you don't exist as self. So these pulses, these births and deaths, are vibrations, but they can also overlap one another, so that there isn't a void, there isn't an off that you slip into. So there is another pulse that fits the slot of where the off period is. But nonetheless, they are all pulses of birth and death, and they are never ending. And the energy is not sustainable, it is inexhaustible, because it can be created. Energy was created, and you can create energy from nothing.
Oh.
Extraordinary, you might think, but these are feedback loops. So the soul has a feedback loop to soul source, as I explained earlier about, that soul passing, consciousness passing through you as a program. So this is why when there's a transition from third density to fifth density, it happens pretty instantaneously.
Okay.
because what happens is the Arcana programs change, or the energy, or the pulse energy is in a different supporting consciousness for the world. Not everyone is going to transition to fifth density. Some will go to other places, but the way in which that works is either through mass death, which is what people are afraid of and shouldn't be, or there are energetic transfers of consciousness, temporary holding bays for consciousness to adjust. Some people won't be wanting to move from the third density reality, and they will end up with a different kind of third density reality. Much has been talked about ships and being helped, but a lot of this is on an energetic level, whereby what's then created is created in not such a new program, but a consciousness that is evolving to cater for that as a reflection of desire. So it's probably quite a bit to take in.
Yeah, you've just given quite a bit of information that I've never heard anywhere else. I can understand it. It just takes a minute to own it and to be able to think with it. So thank you for that. I wasn't expecting to get such a thorough answer. I thought it would be completely avoided, so I appreciate that. And so the way I understand it is that there's an oversoul, which can be looked at as the hand. And then there are individual personalities. So I'm one of these, and I have an oversoul. And from what I gather, for Robert, you are not the oversoul. You're something else.
No, I am one of those projections.
Oh, really? You would be considered another finger?
Yes.
Oh.
On a different dimensional reality to your third dimensional reality, higher self is moving within myself, moving within Robert. It is a consciousness. It is an awareness, a level of awareness that has created separation programs.
Okay.
So those multiple personalities, or the multidimensional selves, are compartmentalized programs, separation programs. So indeed, there are other separation programs that exist for observation, because if all soul consciousness was in experience, there would be nothing to observe. It would be lost in experience. So there are compartmentalized programs within the soul, compartmentalized Arcana programs. You see, because you are source and you are an Arcana program, but you are also an experience and an entity. I spoke once before about Tequila. Tequila means you cannot be who you are unless you are all things. So before you were self, you were non-self. Before you were experience, you were non-experience. So you are all these things as well. And there are parts of your consciousness which are these programs. That is you. They act for you. They are you. So when someone interacts with you, someone says, I spoke to Michael of the Blue Ray or Saint Michael, they are interacting with his Arcana program and having a personal experience with it. So they are, but he as such doesn't need, within his focus, he doesn't necessarily need to be aware that he's interacting with them through his consciousness programs. So we are magnificent in our expansiveness. So yes, you are source. Most people tend to think of reverence to some greater power or some energy or the center of all these things, whereas you are the center, you are source, you are just in a separation program. So your soul has many divisions, so does mine, and so do the group souls as well. But these...
Oh, interesting. So, in order for Robert to occur, though, isn't he a fragment of energy from something else? I don't know how that works, but
there is body life force, which is projected from source. Because you are source energy, soul source energy, it's a soul as part of source, so it's soul source energy that has a finer way of sustaining life forces in different dimensions. So when a baby is growing, different amounts of life force are inserted at different periods.
I see.
Soul source energy. And there is soul there as well. So there is a developing Arcana program as well. So different amounts of soul source energy, different amounts of consciousness are inserted during the growth. So Robert's existence is soul source energy, as am I, but a projection from myself, from my consciousness, with part of the energy that belonged to me. I'm not depleted in energy. I will come on to something else in a while about depletion of soul, or not so much depletion of soul, but loss of soul parts. Though there is no loss. So yes, Robert is a projection of me, which is different to previous past life encounters on Earth.
Okay. I guess I don't fully understand the past life projections then. If you're
it does get complicated, doesn't it, Kate?
I don't even know how to entirely sure how to. I understand an energy source, and I understand a projection of an energy source into an Arcana program. That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
And then it has a lot to do about thought and creation, I'm sure. But how there can be a disconnect with the past lives, wouldn't you be influencing those lives as well?
Yes, we are. What you do now, you influence all your lives, because your soul rotates through you. It is your energy. So past lives have created residual energy by the deeds and actions undertaken. That energy belongs to you. It is you. So the deeds that have been done by mankind are mankind. You cannot separate yourself out from what you have created. You are a creator. You have created energy. It is your energy. If you wish to transmute it and change your timelines, that is your choice.
Got it. And the penny dropped. Thank you.
And that's why I was talking earlier about karma and the need to transmute this energy, which is you. You can, once you know what it is that has created the energy and why you created that energy, then you can release it because you've understood the wisdom behind it.
Oh,
So
interesting.
you don't need to repeat it.
Right.
And in a way, that's what enlightenment is, so that when you come to look at the paradoxes in your life or the things that don't fit together, and you take the two sides and put them together, as Buddha would have said, you realize that with paradox, which is creator in itself, and how things form from paradox, that the pieces don't fit together, and they are programs, but you just don't have to put energy into them.
Got it. Okay.
So you, a bit like 3D Earth, you just remove the energy from it because it doesn't serve your purpose.
Right.
You are a creator. You've experimented. You've had an experience. You've created your own energy. You've created yourself. And now you're creating a different you by letting go of programs that you do not need to fill with energy.
Okay, that makes sense. So, correct me if I'm wrong. So you went to this outpost.
Not me, Antemedi, but my soul went to an outpost as an Andromedan because that Andromedan went to Earth for a 3D experiment. So there was a dissolution or a retrograde experience originally.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
this is the final, this is one retrograde experience that started it, and this is ironically another retrograde experience which completes the circle, which finishes it. Whereas the in-between soul energy was not a projection from my Andromedan self. So an Andromedan projection of my soul first went to Earth, one of my multidimensional selves.
Okay. I think I'm able to keep up here.
I don't know how other people are going to deal with the complexity of this, but
No, we need a little map at this point. Okay.
depends
So,
by what level of soul you're talking from. When you lose the sense of self, who you are as a soul becomes interchangeable. It's like slipping from one consciousness into another consciousness because it's you. There is no self in the way. It matters not. Robert's just an expression. He's able to say that quite freely because he's me.
I understand that, and I'm talking to Antemedi, and the way I had it in my head is that Antemedi went to this outpost, but that's not right. No, I get it. I do get it. So the original intent was to have this 3D experience, and now it's being dissolved because it's no longer.
That particular experiment was not the one involved in the creating of the races, the involvement in aliens in creating humanity's energetic bloodline, some people call it, was something different. This was just purely one of our experiments, just to see what separation programs would do to an Andromedan in a different dimensional arcana program.
Okay, and so that question got answered.
It was. We didn't expect that to take place.
Okay, all right.
You know, I have also talked about consciousness, that I can live in a consciousness where I'm aware of things happening before they happen, because I have nothing to lose, I have nothing to gain. The duality grip on me, there is a fluidity. So that Andromedan projection wasn't the same dimensional Andromedan as I presently am in my sixth dimensional reality.
Okay, that was one of my questions as to dimensions, and thank you. So six-dimensional beings, or at least Andromedans, use technology.
Yes, and so do fifth dimensional ones.
Okay. Is there a point where technology becomes redundant, or?
No, it evolves. Technology is an extension of who we are. We use technology in all sorts of ways. For example, a ship passing through different parts of the universe will have consciousness generators in technology, which inhibit other consciousness entering our collective consciousness. So we enhance that through technology. So technology is used in all sorts of ways. And at different dimensions, of course, what you consider to be the human form, or what you consider to be soul, is rather different.
Right.
How can I explain it? It would be like, or akin to, moving through an energetic planet, or experiencing an energetic planet, and seeing lower or slower vibrational extensions of soul who would be unaware of your presence, and yet you would be aware of them. So you have a density and different dimensions within that density.
Right.
So I could interact, for example, with the higher consciousness of those individuals while they go about the other life. So the other multidimensional part of them. Yeah, it's all consciousness. They're just consciousness programs. Magnificent things.
Boy, you miss out on so much when you're in the 3D. Wow.
But how can you know pain unless you feel it? How can you know loss unless you feel it? That is the nature of the experience.
Okay.
But humanity had a reason to allow in these negative entities. Humanity sees growth, sees enlightenment as a form of progression, as a growth. You know, suffering is part of growth.
Yes.
And other beings do not think that way.
Right.
There is no need to suffer in order to grow or to know. All you would know is suffering.
Yes.
That's a choice.
Yeah, I can see that. So are you an Andromedan from Zene?
No, I'm presently not on any ship at all. And I'm presently in a secure unit on a planet.
Oh,
There
okay.
are energetic technologies in place and not guards as such, but there are others of our world working with those safety mechanisms. So I'm losing it a bit. No, it's just it's like the internet's just bombed. Hang on.
Oh, we lost our connection. I'll be tuning in again. Should I ask a different question?
It's the word I can't get. That's my human memory. Whether I'm trying to work through that's an interesting point. Yeah, the stasis beds. So yes, that
Okay.
talking about. So those things are kept quiet. There's nothing mentioned about where they are or what's going on to avoid any vulnerability.
Yeah, no, that I don't want to be the reason. We'll keep that. That's fine. Can you explain soul groups? Yes, that's my question. Can you explain a soul group?
Yes. When creator energy expanded through Moha, and when creator energy and Moha combined and kind of reversed the process into an expression, source was created, as I said. The idea of soul and the programs for soul in Moha before this creator energy burst decided it needed to experience in order to grow. Soul was created. There was an archetype, an energy, a program for soul, and it was just a program for soul. But the soul developed in a program in such a way that it came forth as a soul bursting through, perhaps as one soul initially, an idea of soul, then into many different soul groups. So different soul groups into conducive areas of the universe, I will put it. These are more of an energetic space than I would call them a place. And it is from the soul groups which are multifold, which then experience down through into monads, overself, or higher self, then into the male and female equivalents of twin flames, so that the there are in fact 12 parts of a oversoul or higher self, 6 female and 6 male projections. So you have a counterpart male soul connection.
Oh.
But where your consciousness travels, your consciousness and your soul exists in all of those. So at different levels of awareness, so as you move through to higher self and you become aware of your other multidimensional selves, the idea of self starts to dissipate. As you move higher into monads and into soul group energies and consciousness, again, the idea of soul and what soul is capable of changes again or overlays.
Okay. So because I understand there are entities, for example, Abraham Hicks. I understand Abraham is not as a fragment, but as an entity that they speak as a collective.
Okay.
They speak in unison or as one. They're working together as one unit. And they don't incarnate from what I understand. My information could be very wrong. And you're not that, right?
No.
Okay. Do you know what dimension that would be?
The Abraham Hicks one?
Or like that, yeah. I don't think they're the only entity. I've heard of the Michael entity. There are these entities, and two of what I know communicate to us through a vessel. What dimension is that?
You can have an entity which has several fragments, whereby I mean the multidimensional aspect of a soul, where those vibrations are compatible, one element is co-joined with the consciousness of the others. So you can be aware of that consciousness in the same way that Robert is aware of my consciousness, and the two flow together. There are other consciousnesses within the soul, so other projections. I'm not perhaps using the words properly. Other aspects of the multidimensional self would be on a similar vibration. Therefore, they are compatible to that speaking part. So it is able to speak as if it has the information from all of those other aspects of its multidimensional self. It's in tandem with them. It's got their arcana programs in flux with his, a bit like I said, interacting with Michael of the Blue Ray.
Oh,
but they don't necessarily have to be aware that their arcana programs, they are aware that their arcana programs are doing it, but they don't have to be conscious of it. They can just let their mind and consciousness work in that way.
Okay. And going back to soul groups, I'm sorry, I don't know why I split out like that. My understanding is that in the fourth density, which is so when we leave the third density, we go to the fourth density.
You don't have to go to the fourth density.
But we're going somewhere. So when we leave our body, we go somewhere to learn and review and work together, right?
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. So you're talking about an Earth death.
Kind of. Okay, maybe I need some information, or maybe my information is wrong. Okay, so from what I know, the Earth has been under like a grid, and so we incarnate and then we leave, and we incarnate, we leave, we incarnate. We've been caught in this constant karmic, and that grid is now gone. So we have a choice of where to go. But when that grid was there, and maybe this is still the case, we leave our body, and now, so we're free of the third density. So now we're fourth density. This is my understanding. Now we're fourth density, and as a third density, we're playing a role. And we're learning lessons, and we're having these experiences, and we work with each other we make plans of our life prior to incarnation. And then we leave and we review that. How did we do? What do we need to do again? And so forth. So my understanding is when we're no longer in the body, that fragment that is no longer in the body, it is residing in the fourth density. Is that not right? Is that wrong?
You return to part of soul source because you are soul source. But the vibrational level of a third dimensional experience and a Kana program, a memory, a consciousness, can only vibrate to a certain level. So it is part of soul source, but soul source is at that point, it is joining with it at a different vibrational level. So it's not all the way back to soul source, but I would still consider it to be an aspect of soul source, but at that vibration. So this is about moving back from one life to another. So yes, there are reviews. Yes, there is help given. And there is the chance to transmute or change energy, the chance to create who you want to be. Unfortunately, when people come back to Earth, very often they forget who it is that they wanted to create themselves to be because they get lost in the fog.
Right.
So it's not, I wouldn't describe it as a fourth dimensional reality. It is in part, but there are other dimensions mixing with it. So, for example, in order for an enlightened being to help somebody, they would have to be in their dimension, mixing their dimension in another one. But the way in which those dimensions mix is slightly different than it would do on third density Earth because of the separation programs.
Okay. So are we working with our soul groups when we're in that different vibration? Density? I have no words anymore to describe. Anyway.
We do some things for us, and we do some things for our soul group. We can do something for love. We can accept an arrow just purely out of love for our soul group to help it move along, because there is no self, there is no need to see it in that way. So it depends on the vibrational consciousness level that's being worked through. Let me turn this another way.
Okay.
Imagine your soul and its consciousness, source and Akana. And you have a thought. You have an idea for an experience. And you project energy and consciousness into that thought. And you create something and you see where it goes. But if it's, for example, a negative thought, and you can't transmute that negative thought because it becomes self-destructive, it fades away. Because you are inexhaustible and it's part of your life force and your thought programs, if it is unsustainable and it's self-defeating or self-consuming, it will die, if you want to put it like that, but it just fades away. But you, the consciousness, don't. It's just an experiment. It's just a thought. You are inexhaustible. You can't be depleted. So this is something that people get wrong. They worry too much about these things. Again, that's different to negative entities and what negative entities can do to us. So I was trying to perhaps turn on the head this idea of what soul is and what it does and what it, and certainly the 3D element of soul, how it rotates itself.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because we've been taught things that may not be accurate. So it's good to hear what you have to say, because it creates, we think in a 3D way, and so this idea of dying and going to the astral plane, I guess, and gathering together in groups and going to schools. I mean, this is what I know. There must be a lot of other people that think that way too. Maybe there's.
You see,
it's different from your explanation of this is a little different.
Okay. It has been said that when people die, they have the choice to return to source. And they do.
Okay. Got it.
But given the reasons for returning to source, if they're human ones, which is about escaping pain and never wishing to encounter a difficult situation again, or to confront your thoughts and feelings, then those energies still exist. Those energies could not return to soul source because they vibrate at a lower level. So the ability to return to source is about the vibrational level as well. But bear in mind, soul rotates itself, and these are just vibrational programs. It's an awareness of self in a separation program. Just looking at the time that we've been on for the second time, added to the first, we're clocking the miles up.
Yes.
You mentioned that there was some personal stuff. Do you want me to ping off, or would you ping off the recording, or do you feel it's appropriate for that to be shared?
Yeah, after.
Okay.
Go ahead and end the recording, and then I'll ask my questions if you don't mind. And yeah, we covered a lot of ground here. So thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you for asking the questions, and it kind of becomes organic, and then it leads to some other questions.
It does, and I'm realizing that there's no way to fully comprehend this until you're out of the 3D body. I'm trying to use my mind to visualize things that I can't experience in this form. Yeah.
I've mentioned before that my outreach work in this transition as well is different. I concentrate on soul, I concentrate on thought, I concentrate on consciousness. I don't talk about spaceships other than as parts of consciousness. I don't talk about where and what is going to happen. I just show possibilities and talk about the big differences in the way that we think. How is humanity going to understand an alien if he can't understand the way that the alien thinks? Yeah. If he sees and judges them through humanity's ideas, he's got no concept.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
These are important bridges.
It is. And there's a lot of work to be done to get to that place. A lot of that is just automatic. it takes work to get rid of those automaticities and to think a different way. Yeah.
Anyway, we've talked for quite a while, so I think it's a good time to say goodbye. And thank you again, Kate. And perhaps we'll do something similar.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.